a guy that I was pissed that you drafted. Okay, speaking of promotions, your third pick of the draft, I can't believe we're saying this in hindsight, but Kalen DeBoer was your third pick in the second year coaches draft. He goes 14-1, national championship appearance. I mean, pretty bonkers. I mean, they were nearly top 10 points per game offensively, but if you look at all the metrics, they essentially were one of the top offenses in the country easily. Defensively, they were fine. Um, sure, they gave up a lot of points per game, quote unquote, but like they also played some of the best offenses in the entire country, all year consistently. So, and they were going shot for shot with them. So, yeah, he's fantastic, man. I mean, overall, his career record, if you include the 14-1, uh, oh shoot, I don't have it in front of me. That sucks. But he has an absolutely ridiculous record overall. He's hired the right coaching staffs, gets promoted. He's going to Alabama, the coveted Alabama head football coaching job that's been held by Nick Saban for nearly 2 decades. Yeah, I mean, how can you not be high on Kalen DeBoer? It's like here's the thing though. It is a tough situation that he's going into. Okay. And that's the only reason why I think you would draft Dan Lanning over Kalen DeBoer because of the high expectations and the challenge of the situation that he's been given. So but in my opinion, I do think Kalen DeBoer will work out there.
Yeah,
However, like we were saying, Dan Lanning kind of is in that tier of his own because he's already has the program humming and buzzing at the way that he wants it to hum and buzz. Come back in a couple of years, Kalen DeBoer might have this Alabama team absolutely, you know, firing on all
continuing
cylinders,
to
but
roll.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there. Like going into his third year, I think DeBoer will be viewed at a lot differently than there's a lot of question marks right now. Like even though as confident as we are in him, I think like there's still some uncertainty like how it's actually going to play out on the field and all that with all the changes going on. But like his record, by the way, 104-12. He's got 3 NAIA titles at Sioux Falls. He won the Pac-12 last year in a gauntlet, a very good Pac-12. Ran into a buzzsaw in Michigan last year in the title game. Yeah, I mean, it's uber impressive. I could not be happier that he's on my team there with the third pick. Hindsight, I could flip him and Lincoln Riley and be very, very happy, and that would make a lot of sense into what it actually, turned out to be just a year later. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of question marks about his recruiting pedigree. I mean, but he went out and landed Ryan Williams after he decommitted. I mean, I think he'll be fine at Alabama. And all the question marks, he seems to be answering, put together a great staff, seems to be recruiting and obviously relentlessly, not only in the portal, but also hitting the ground running from 2024 class and closing that out, sealing the deal with all those guys, but also the 2025 and beyond for Bama. And yeah, he's a guy that's just somebody you just listen to him talk. I mean, it's a totally different vibe than Saban, but I think that'll be fine. I think it'll really work out. And yeah, he's really good. I mean, Washington's a good program, and what he did in a couple years there was uber impressive. But they've also had success before. But I still do think the quick turnaround, just the massive change that like Jimmy Lake's team was very talented, but he was so bad, and it was just like you get a good coaching staff in there. How quickly you could change the culture and the scheme and all that stuff and maximize the potential of that roster, I think says a lot about DeBoer. Now, how can he build a roster? I mean, he did it at Sioux Falls. I don't think he's going to have too much of a problem at Alabama, considering the roster is already pretty well constructed. Maybe a little bit, a couple spots here depth wise is not great. Um, but I still do think that I still think the future is very bright for DeBoer and Alabama, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and when he was at Fresno State, he was a winner in Indiana in 2019 when he was the offensive coordinator there. Um, I guess 2019, 2020. I mean, he was with Michael Penix. Michael Penix had his best year. I mean, Indiana had probably its best statistically offensive season in its entire history. And he leaves, and you kind of saw what happened to that offense. Now, yeah, there were a lot of injuries. I get it. Okay. Including to Michael Penix. But the irony, though, is that he just hired that offensive coordinator that replaced him at Indiana, the one that kind of pooped the bed as Alabama's offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan. So there is some irony there. But yeah, DeBoer is fantastic. And I think if you were to talk about, like you said, the range in which you would draft him, I think you switching Lincoln Riley with Kalen DeBoer is not crazy at all. Easily top three coach. Um,
On
Probably
this
if we
list,
were
on this
on
list,
this
up,
list,
up,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and like when you look at like coaching rankings, it's so hard to like evaluate a guy headed to a new job. But if you're just looking at his resume, I mean, he is easily one of the best coaches in the entire country, and quite frankly, I can't see an argument that you could make against that.
yeah. And I think you also have like to me when I'm looking at this list right now, I'm trying to rank them, re-rank them again. It's like who I do think is next to win a national title, and I think Dan Lanning, DeBoer, Mike Elko, like Dan and DeBoer are like right there with each other. Elko, Freeman, Riley, probably in a tier of its own. Got some work to do that to get to that spot. But I think with Nick Saban leaving, Jim Harbaugh leaving, with Dabo Sweeney and Clemson just refusing to use the transfer portal, like you only have a certain number of coaches that actually have won a title. So it's very hard. It kind of gets all to pick your preference on who's the second best coach in college football, and like who's 2 through 7 is to me pretty interchangeable with what you want to do there after Kirby Smart, obviously. So yeah, DeBoer at Alabama now. It seems weird to say that, just because of how uh, not different. Like he's similar in the same ways as Saban. We talked a bunch about it. I encourage you to go watch our videos back in January when DeBoer was hired to Alabama. But I think it's a pretty exciting hire for them and DeBoer. Yeah, and in this draft, I gotta give myself an A+ on this pick. I mean, to get him in the third round there, pretty good value.
I
He's
wanted,
probably the
I
best
would
player
have,
on the board.
I think I expressed in the video too that I would have taken him right there. Like if you had
Yeah.
not taken him, and I don't know who you would have taken him over that, but yeah, it's interesting.